You ever feel like you're in a war no one else can see? Like every day you wake up and step onto a battlefield that exists only inside your own mind, where you are both the soldier and the enemy. You fight to be better, to be good enough, to be in control. But somehow, no matter what you do, you end up feeling like you've lost. You don't talk about it because how could you? The people around you see your life from the outside, the job, the relationship, the polite smile, and they assume you're fine. But you know you're not. You know that inside there's something restless, something hollow, something that doesn't stop whispering, "You're not there yet." This isn't a new war, it's ancient. The Stoics called it the battle against the passions, the inner turmoil that clouds judgment. Nietzsche called it the struggle to overcome the herd within, the part of you that wants to belong so badly that it betrays your individuality. And the truth is, most people never even realize this war is happening. They think their exhaustion, their anxiety, their endless scrolling are random, but they're symptoms, signs of an invisible civil war between who they are and who they pretend to be. You know that voice in your head that says, "You should be doing more"? That's not your motivation talking. That's your fear of being ordinary. The war begins the moment you start defining your worth by what others can see. We grow up learning to measure ourselves through reflection, through mirrors, likes, numbers, praise. But no one tells us that the mirror doesn't show the truth. It shows the performance. Think of how you scroll through social media. You see other people's success, their confidence, their happiness, and something inside you tightens. You don't even realize it, but you start to adjust yourself to fit that reflection. Plato warned about this in his allegory of the cave. He said most people live chained in a cave, mistaking shadows for reality. Today those shadows are digital, algorithmic projections of who we should be. And every time you compare yourself to those shadows, you tighten your own chains. But the cruel irony is, even when you win this game, you lose. Because if your worth depends on how others see you, you will never know who you actually are when no one's looking. Have you noticed how uncomfortable silence feels now? We fill every second, music, podcasts, endless content. We tell ourselves we're staying informed or productive, but deep down we're terrified of being alone with our own thoughts. Dietrich Bonhoeffer once wrote that, "Nothing can be more cruel than the leniency that leaves us in our sins." Modern life is filled with that kind of leniency. It never forces us to face ourselves. It distracts us just enough so we never have to. But silence is where the truth lives. Stillness is where you find the parts of yourself that you've buried under noise and ambition. When was the last time you sat in silence, not to meditate, not to be mindful, but just to listen to whatever is screaming under the surface? Because the enemy you've been fighting might not be failure. It might be the fear of knowing yourself. We worship progress, constant self-improvement, optimization, productivity. But here's the paradox. The more you chase progress, the more inadequate you feel. Because progress without peace is just motion, an endless treadmill that looks like growth, but feels like decay. Machiavelli wrote that it's better to be feared than loved, but the modern version is subtler. It's better to be admired than understood. You don't need people to know who you are, you just need them to believe in the image. And the tragedy? That image eventually starts controlling you. You start to live for the idea of yourself, the curated, socially acceptable, successful version, while your real self starves quietly in the dark. That's why burnout feels like betrayal. Because part of you finally realizes that the life you've built was never for you. Control is another illusion we cling to. You try to control outcomes, emotions, even other people's perceptions of you. But the more control you seek, the less peace you find. The Stoics said we only ever control two things, our thoughts and our actions. Everything else, reputation, recognition, fate, is beyond us. But we live like we can rewrite destiny if we just work hard enough, or think positive enough, or post the right version of ourselves online. Maybe the reason you feel anxious isn't because you're failing. It's because you're fighting a universe that never promised to obey you. There's power in surrender. Not the weak kind, but the kind that comes from clarity. The moment you stop needing everything to make sense, life begins to. When you stop demanding constant validation, you start hearing your own voice again. When you stop chasing control, you finally experience freedom. Nietzsche called this amor fati, the love of fate. It's not resignation, it's radical acceptance. It's saying, Whatever happens, happens for me, not against me. That every scar, every failure, every heartbreak is just another brushstroke on the canvas of who you're becoming. You can't win the war within by defeating yourself. You win it by making peace with your contradictions. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That means your weaknesses, your mistakes, your guilt, they're not enemies to erase. They're clues to understanding who you are. Every time you deny your anger, it grows. Every time you suppress your fear, it whispers louder. Every time you hide your insecurities, they shape your choices from the shadows. The goal isn't to fix yourself, it's to become whole, to integrate the shadow you've been running from. Because when you stop running, you stop dividing yourself. And for the first time, you can see that the person you've been trying to become was never separate from the one you already are. We talk about freedom like it's the absence of limits. But real freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about not being enslaved by what you want. The Stoics, the Buddhists, even the early Christian mystics, they all said the same thing in different ways. Freedom is not the ability to have more, it's the ability to need less. When you're no longer defined by what you consume or what you achieve or how others see you, that's when you actually start living, because your identity stops being a performance and starts being a presence. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You will never be fully healed. You will never have it all figured out. And that's not a tragedy. It's the human condition. The idea of a finished self is a modern myth. There is no final form, no ultimate version of you waiting at the end of your productivity streak. There's only this evolving, imperfect, uncertain version of you doing their best in a world that doesn't make sense. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the peace you've been chasing isn't found in becoming more, but in being right here as you are. So here's a thought to leave you with. You've spent your whole life trying to win a war that was never meant to be fought. Maybe it's time to lay down your weapons. Stop striving to be invincible. Start daring to be whole. Because once you stop fighting yourself, you'll realize the battle was never against the world. It was always against the illusion that you had to be anything other than human. And that might be the only kind of victory that truly lasts.